The apocalypse is a cycle that has existed far longer than one can fathom. It is orchestrated by an ancient alien civilization that has ruled over this planet for so long. We are now at the end of another cycle of humanity, and the end of days is on the fringe of existence. You will be made to believe that all of the motives were solely political, when in fact that is the false image portrayed for the apocalypse. No one will survive, because no one is supposed to. It's a big reset. Even if you have bunkers with food and water at plenty, you will still perish because they will find you and wipe you out. No one can compete with technology that is millions of years ahead of us. The only ones who will survive are those already working for the ancient civilization. Sorry, but this is how it is. Call me crazy, call me a doomsday freak, but before long this event will take place, and this is why I have decided to create this video. It cannot help you, because no one can survive, but it can provide you with some light regarding the subject of World War III or the apocalypse. Satan, Baphomet, or the real name, Lucifer, is a real entity and is an alien ET being. He is here on Earth disguised in white robes. He is the Pope. He can shape-shift and manipulate lives as my own life has been manipulated by him. I first saw his presence as the Hat Man when I was young. A few years later I seen his presence again along with 2 other kids, and this time it was a pure black flying entity that filled my heart with fear and dread. It is he who dresses in white, the Pope. He is the ruler of this planet and he is Lucifer. Their main base is the moon. The alien civilization lives inside the moon. It's not a natural celestial body. Choose to believe what you wish, but I am giving you knowledge that is going to make this entity angrier with me. Just like Jesus was crucified and tortured, this entity manipulates lives to destroy those that have special DNA, and they are the true knowledge bringers. Please watch the rest of the video. May you have the principles of Buddha and the love of Jesus in your heart. I have come to understand the true power and love is in Jesus, as he fought Lucifer and showed people him.
Government. Look at our country, for instance. There is no government in our country. There's no government. So, government is that whatever that ever was is gone.
Major Ed Dames, some call him Dr. Doom. You'll find out why in a moment on Coast to Coast. And welcome back to Coast. Dr. Doom, the world's foremost remote viewing teacher, instructor. He's a decorated military intelligence officer. You've heard him on Coast to Coast many times. He's a no-nonsense kind of guy, and here he is back on Coast to Coast. Hello, Major. How are you?
Oh, good evening, George.
Good to have you with us, and Merry Christmas to you and yours.
Are you allowed to say that?
Of course I can. Government's what makes me stop.
Yet?
Not for me. They will never muffle me, Edward. Never, never, never.
Actually, I'm getting ready to go back to Kiev and next week for the holidays, but it seems they've already started to celebrate in Kiev.
Yes, that is true. When you get there, how long's that flight for you?
Oh, it's about a day, all told, something else like that. But I'll have to try to bypass 500,000 people in the city square to get to my apartment.
Why don't you just remote view and not even go? Save the money on the ticket.
No, well, remote viewing Natasha is one thing. Being with her is another.
That's another. There's some things remote
there because I get 25th as Christmas, and then Russian Orthodox Christmas is January 6th, so it's kind of nice.
And whenever you're on, I get so many emails from people who say, I love him, have him talk about this or that. And then I get that diehard group of people that say, fry him, get him.
Of course. People, and I'm glad I can be of service to people who love to hate me. They need that. Somebody needs somebody. By the way, I wanted to mention on a sad note, but another note, in honor of Lloyd Pye, I think I'm going to have my intelligence agency conduct a special study on that skull. Take a look at the origin and living organism. If it was, we don't go into a problem set armed with any biases, so we're not going to assume that the skull was not fabricated like some of the crystal skulls, but it probably was real. Well, we want to draw and sketch and describe the life of the entity that owned that skull. But in this country, when the dollar collapses and when there are bank holidays, it's not going to be the same.
Well, there are some people who are saying, for example, the stock market is way too high and that bubble's going to bust. What do you think?
It's a fait accompli. Just watch. In 2014, yeah, I mean, anybody, even a hobbyist, an economic hobbyist, can see that that's a truism. I mean, I've been on the inside at NSA and all the highest celestial levels of the government. I can't talk about what we've really done to ourselves and our people. I wish I could. I talk more behind closed doors in my presentations, but not too much more, because I've become an enemy of the state very quickly, the state I worked for my whole career.
Going to meet us?
No, that was the possibly other dimensional entities that orchestrated the kill shot sequence when infrastructure collapses, when grids go down, those kinds of things.
You have talked about how the kill shot is our reset button. What do you mean by that?
If you look back in human history, and you look at your guests like Graham Hancock and all these other wonderful speakers and researchers have said, look, this is not the only civilization that's been around. There's something even before the Sumerians 9,000 years ago. Look, all of a sudden the pyramids were there. There was language and mathematics. I don't think so. There's stuff that at least is evidence of perhaps societies, one or more, that goes way back further than that, right? And those all got a reset. In the mythology, I don't care what mythology you use, that something big happened, whether it was a flood or fire or whatever, something big happened, the memory went to sleep, and all of a sudden mankind popped up again. So that's what I mean by a reset.
Some might be surprised to learn that the fate of America's economy has already been determined, verified, and announced by the Obama White House. Yet, it has received scant attention from the corporate media. In 2011, economist Kyle Bass interviewed a senior member of the Obama administration about its planned solutions for fixing the U.S. economy and trade deficit. Among the questions he asked was about the U.S. exports and wages. But the question itself was not nearly as important as the response he received from this senior administration official. In fact, this single 7-word response clarifies everything, explains everything, and leaves little else to discuss. We're just going to kill the dollar. There it is, the entire agenda in one short sentence. It explains everything we've been seeing domestically and globally. That one statement makes every other question irrelevant, or otherwise answers all economic questions and explains everything. Nothing else matters. I urge you to ponder that statement and all it implies. Doing so will provide you with the clarity to understand not only what is taking place today, but what is yet to come. It is important to note the specificity of the word kill. Stated in the active voice, it means an unambiguously intentional and deliberate act. The murder of our national currency, the United States dollar, is the ultimate agenda to be implemented under Obama. To kill our national currency will subvert the United States and destroy it from within. This begs a number of questions, including what type of Americans would actually have as their objective the destruction of our national currency. To whom do they hold their allegiance, if not to the American people, whose life's work as well as the toil of our ancestors is represented in the form of wealth held in U.S. dollars? Does this make any sense to us as Americans? The answer is, of course, no. By its very definition, to kill our national currency is an act of high treason by those engaged in this activity. It undermines the very sovereignty and survival of our nation and will have a life-changing impact on every citizen in the U.S. It will also impact every nation and the people of every nation on the planet, as the U.S. dollar is presently the world's reserve currency. It is an act that should result in the filing of criminal charges against the conspirators, a trial of their peers, and if convicted, a death sentence. It's that serious. According to my source, we are past the point of no return. We will not be able to stop what is coming, but must be wise enough to prepare and get out of the way. The murder plot involving the death of the dollar did not begin with Obama, but he and other conspirators have accelerated the plans, plots, and schemes for its demise. The ultimate objective is to implement an international currency in tandem with a system of global governance. The problem is that most people are not thinking large enough, nor do they understand the magnitude of the lie. They are not seeing the larger picture as their focus is diverted elsewhere. For example, they focus on various tentacles of the octopus, such as the gun confiscation initiative, the DHS armament acquisitions, and economic woes as independent and unrelated events. They are not. Meanwhile, others continue to adhere to or even perpetuate the dual-party meme of governance, holding dearly to the notion that there is a practical difference between the Republican and Democratic parties. Have we not seen sufficient evidence that they are now of one party acting in concert with each other? They cannot see the collusion and backroom deals and continue to hope that the next election will finally change the unchangeable continuity of agenda. Most of the elected officials are on board with the subjugation of the United States to a global system of governance. Some are actively facilitating this agenda, while others are making nominal objections on the stage of political theater, whilst hoping to earn a seat at the global table. It's entertainment for the globalists, distraction of the masses, and diversionary fodder for the talking heads in the media. America has become a captured operation, captured from within. Think of the Vichy French internal collaboration with the enemy, or softening the ground for a full takeover from within. The takeover of America has already happened. The collaborators have already been installed, and we are now on a path to complete subjugation of a larger global system of governance. If you continue to doubt this, how else would you explain the numerous examples of our dual-party governmental acquiescence of self-destruction? Those who are pleased about the new record-setting stock market highs and various other manipulated statistics that indicate our economy is improving will be the most vocal critics of this report, and who will attempt to discredit the validity of the information offered here. The more intellectually astute will look beyond the statistics offered for mass consumption, not only to identify the deliberately manipulated data, but to understand what is actually driving these false hopes, figures, and data. It is a magic show, and many are still captivated by the magician's many diversions, failing to realize that we are engaged in a global war, while being simultaneously hobbled by enemy infiltrators from within. One reason we are seeing new stock market highs is the rush to the dollar from other currencies, especially in the Eurozone. Another reason is the monetization of our debt by the Federal Reserve, despite the previous denials of Ben Bernanke and others. Simply put, the plan by the globalists, or the central bankers and those behind them, is to create this rush to the US dollar like passengers from a sinking ship to lifeboats. Once the lifeboats are filled to capacity, they will be sunk, and the United States dollar will be completely worthless. As in such a scenario, many will not make it. Many will die from what is coming. The level of evil behind this plan is incomprehensible to the normal human mind. We are at war with Russia. After removing Gaddafi from power in Libya, the Obama-Clinton Black Ops plan was immediately put into action. Benghazi was a logistics hub for arming the anti-Assad terrorists by our own State Department, covert operatives who were shipping millions of tons of weapons to Syria via Turkey and other staging areas. Russia was aware of our actions, and through the attack at the CIA Operations Center in Benghazi by proxy forces, exposed this operation to the world while putting a stop to this operation. It seems that everyone except the Western media reported what had taken place. The dirty little secret which explains why we have not been told the truth about Benghazi is quite simple. The efforts to overthrow Assad from power are continuing, except the arms and munitions shipments are now originating primarily out of Croatia. Overthrowing Assad would pose a direct threat to Russia, both militarily and economically. Are we to expect Russia's Putin to simply accept this without response? No. What is Russia doing to subvert our efforts? He is waging war against America, striking at the weak underbelly of our economy, which is the oil-backed dollar as identified in Michael Reagan's article, Building on a Kernel of Truth. Sadly, the Obama regime is doing nothing to protect us from this asymmetrical war. It's as if they are allowing it to take place. Although it was reported in the New York Times, few have paid attention to last week's meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. But it was an extremely important event in terms of the planned murder of the US dollar. An alliance is being forged between Russia and China to replace the US dollar as the reserve currency, already severely weakened by the policies of those in power, with a gold-backed currency. While reports do exist that cite the hoarding of gold by China and Russia, they are purposely underreporting their collective reserves. Meanwhile, Americans can't even get honest answers to the amounts of our own gold reserves held in Fort Knox or the Federal Reserve. Don't people find this reluctance for audit and inspection a bit curious, if not outright suspicious? The battle is being waged not only by military might, but by a currency war. We are being played through our military involvement in the Middle East, including our covert operations against Syria at the behest of Saudi Arabia. Unlike Iraq, the war in Syria will explode, turn hot, and we will be engaged in an ominous battle that will quickly expand and turn deadly. Weakened militarily through the policies of the Obama regime, coupled with an already weakened economy, the US will suffer consequences unlike anyone might imagine or is willing to address. It is a recipe for disaster, planned and initiated by the global elite behind the central banking system, including those in our own government, who've been set up from within, lied to, and now we're about to see exactly what this globalist system has in store for not only the United States, but every nation of the world. It is critical to understand that the takedown of the US will be the result of an asymmetrical war that includes the weakening of our military, our economy, and a direct assault on our ability to keep the dollar as the world reserve currency and protect the free flow of oil and energy to the United States. Within the last week, China held a surprise naval exercise in the South China Sea. Meanwhile, Russia displayed their resurgent military might in the Black Sea. These exercises were conducted as US military forces are spread thinly across many areas of the world. Is anyone paying attention here? Just as certain a collapse of the dollar is coming, so will be chaos on the streets of America caused by this plan to kill the dollar. The central bankers and the leaders selected to govern each country have effectively used the Hegelian dialectic to implement their agenda. Just as stated by George H.W. Bush on September the 11th, 1990, their predetermined solution of a new world order is being formed before our very eyes. They've told us what they are doing, but we have chosen not to listen or failed to understand what was being said. The US has always been the firewall against the globalists. By their persistence, infiltration of global elitists into our government, and covert subversion from within, we are being led to slaughter. A view from space, looking at the larger picture of events for which many have questions, a clearer picture emerges. There will be some who dare to resist the pillaging of our bank accounts, the erosion of our rights, and the enslavement that comes with the dismantling of America. The dust clouds visible on the far horizon that watchmen have been reporting for decades can now be seen as an attacking army of barbarians whose fighters are now on the ladders and cannons are breaching our empire's outer walls. Who knows how long the inner walls of our empire will survive the next wave of their coming attack. Perhaps Ernest Hemingway said it best in referencing John Donne from his novel of the same name. And therefore, Never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee.
You have talked about how the kill shot is our reset button. What do you mean by that?
If you look back in human history, and you look at your guests like Graham Hancock and all these other wonderful speakers and researchers have said, look, this is not the only civilization that's been around. There's something even before the Sumerians 9,000 years ago. Look, all of a sudden the pyramids were there. There was language and mathematics. I don't think so. There's stuff that at least is evidence of perhaps societies, one or more, that goes way back further than that, right? And those all got a reset. In the mythology, I don't care what mythology you use, that something big happened, whether it was a flood or fire or whatever, something big happened, the memory went to sleep, and all of a sudden mankind popped up again. So that's what I mean by a reset.